So I've been making videos about moving to and living in Winston-Salem since 2020, and in that 5 years I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of people that are thinking about moving here. And oftentimes what happens is people start doing some research, they come across some videos, they see some stuff online, and on my initial conversation with them they have these questions about these myths that are persistent about Winston-Salem. So today I want to talk about these myths and hopefully give you some clarity if you're thinking maybe the same thing. And my goal this year is not only to be in the top 1% of all real estate agents in Winston-Salem, but it's to be the number one real estate agent in your heart. So if you need help buying or selling real estate, my contact information is on the screen and in the description. All right, the first myth is I'm blank and I don't know if I will fit in here. And that blank could be so many different things. I've heard so many. It's I'm a certain race, religion, or I'm not religious, or a certain age group, or I'm from the North, will I be welcomed in the South, or I vote this way, or I vote that way. Pick your blank. I've probably heard it before, and let me just tell you this about fitting in Winston-Salem. First, to get the obvious out of the way, Winston-Salem is a southern town, southern city in a southern state, but it is a city. It's got a lot of different diversity in it. It's consistently rated A or A+ on niche.com when it comes to diversity. And it's a full-fledged, small or medium-sized city. So it's not this, maybe Bible Belt thumping small town that you might be thinking of with some of those southern stereotypes. Yes, it has some southern charm and it has a lot of history to the city, but it's just maybe not what you're thinking. Don't forget, many of us here are transplants too, and my just, rough estimate is about half the people I come across in Winston-Salem and the surrounding areas are not from here. And I'll say it's set up just like most cities, right? The city itself tends to be a little bit more progressive and the suburbs tend to be a little bit more conservative. The state, as far as politics goes, is pretty purple, some red, some blue, and just everybody kind of finds a way to get along and get things done. And when you combine that, with southern charm and southern hospitality, which is a real thing, by the way, most people find a way to get along and really fit in nicely here. Sure, there are some jerks here like there are everywhere, but the vast majority of people here, you're going to be comfortable for the most part if you live in Winston-Salem. With North Carolina being one of the most moved to states in the country, it's become very comfortable with people coming from other places, moving here, settling in, and just kind of doing their own thing and fitting in. And just from my own personal experience, I moved here in summer 2019 with my two sons from the suburbs of Chicago. We felt very welcome from the start. A lot of my clients echo the same thing. They feel great. They make connections here. So I think it's safe that you can put your mind at ease. If you're blank and you think you won't fit in, you probably will. All right, the next myth that I hear kind of going along with North Carolina is a popular state to move to is Winston-Salem is getting too crowded and too overpopulated. This tends to be just kind of a surface level myth, but it is one that is kind of persistent. Now, Winston-Salem, unlike, Raleigh, Charlotte, Asheville, the bigger places in North Carolina where people are used to moving to, far fewer people are relocating here from those other places. And in Raleigh and in Charlotte, when I go down there, you can definitely tell how crowded it is there versus other parts of the state. And North Carolina as a whole, don't forget, there are about 10 or 11 million people in the entire state. That is about the population of where I moved from in the Chicagoland area alone. So the state itself is not overcrowded, overpopulated. There are some pockets that are definitely getting like that, like I said, Raleigh and Charlotte, but let's talk about Winston-Salem. I'm going to get a little nerdy and give you a couple statistics here on population density in Winston-Salem. So how many people live in a given square mile is the population density of that area. So Winston-Salem is about 1,800. So in a square mile of land, average 1,800 people live in there. So let's compare that to some other cities. Raleigh and Charlotte that we just talked about are at 3,200 and 2,800 respectively. So much more densely populated in those areas versus Winston-Salem. And even Greensboro is more densely populated than Winston-Salem at 3,200 people per square mile. If we look at some other popular cities where people are coming here from, Atlanta is 3,700. Orlando, Florida is about 2,800 people per square mile. And Phoenix and Austin come in right at about 3,100 people per square mile. So again, roughly, a lot of these places are roughly twice as populated as Winston-Salem per square mile. I hope that makes sense to you. Maybe an easier thing to do is go on Google, take the satellite view of the area. You will see lots of open spaces. You'll see lots of green space, and it just really is not that densely populated. The population here is growing about, it ranges 1% to 3% a year, so usually kind of in that middle range. Grows here about 2% per year, which is really sustainable. And one of the things I love about the area is you can be in the center of downtown, the most densely populated area in Winston-Salem. You can drive 10, 15, 20 minutes max, and you can be out kind of in the country. So I'm comfortable in saying that it's not too crowded here. It's not overpopulated. It's not even close. So we can put that one to bed. The next myth that I hear is Winston-Salem is a small city relative to where I'm coming from. There's not going to be anything to do. I had a potential client come here a couple years ago. They were from New York. They came here and she literally said, it's so empty here. I thought there was going to be a tumbleweed rolling across the street. And so yes, maybe if you're comparing it to Manhattan, there's going to be a lot less things to do. But for a city of its size, Winston-Salem absolutely excels at different things to do. If you like outdoors, it's amazing. If you're a family and you're looking for things to do with the kids, it's amazing. The city and the surrounding towns just do an excellent job of providing lots of different activities, almost whatever you're into. And especially if you consider, the metropolitan statistical area here, when you factor in Greensboro, High Point, and the surrounding suburbs, I mean, everywhere within, 45 minutes of Winston-Salem, there's over 1.5 million people, plenty of population, plenty of things to do. But Winston-Salem itself really excels at it. They're great at supporting small businesses. A couple websites, if you want to look at, ongoing events and things to do, would be the Go To Winston-Salem and Winston-Salem Today. They both have really good event pages. They also have pretty good Instagram accounts too. If you just kind of want to spy and see what's kind of going on in the city, you'll see that Winston-Salem has a lot to offer. For a city of about 260,000 people, it really excels. I think almost whatever you're into, like I said, you're going to find plenty of stuff to do here. The next myth that I hear sometimes is Winston is just for young people because it's all full of college kids. And while it's true, Winston-Salem was named one of the South's best college towns in 2022 by Southern Living. And there are 6 colleges in the area. We have about 29,000 college students in the Winston-Salem area at any given time. To say that it's just full of or just catering to college students is definitely false. Now there are for sure, if you're in college, there are for sure some college hangouts and bars and restaurants and places where college students tend to, gather for sure. But 29,000 out of 260,000 is not full of college kids. Besides having 6 colleges and those college students here, Winston-Salem is consistently named one of the best places in the country to retire from places like Forbes, Kiplinger's, U.S. News, Smart Asset, and more. I mean, this is a great place for people to come to retire to. It's always ranked really highly on those lists. And if you have families, it's rising on a lot of those lists as best places to raise a family as well. Places like niche.com, Livability always ranks it as a really good place in the country to raise a family, U.S. News, and more. It consistently does well on best places to raise a family as well. And Greater Winston-Salem Inc. has a stated goal to be the #1 place in the Southeast to raise a family by 2030. So Winston-Salem does a great job at catering to not only different, types of people diversity-wise, but all different age groups. So it's definitely not just overrun by college kids. The next myth about moving to Winston-Salem is the crime in Winston-Salem is really high. I'm not sure if I'm going to be safe. And as a real estate agent, we're in one of those kind of weird areas about telling people where they should and shouldn't live. So I'm just going to give some statistics here. Overall crime has come down over 18% in the last year in Winston-Salem. The city publishes crime statistics and reports about every quarter or so that you can go online on the Winston-Salem website. Just, if you Google those crime reports, you'll see them directly from the police department. But at the same time, let's be real, the crime in Winston-Salem is higher than the national average. And one of the good things about this, a lot of the crime that occurs here is simple property crimes of a car getting broken into and rifled through. Not that that's good, but it's better. Violent crime in Winston-Salem is way down, and that's on a 3-year trend of steadily coming down as well. So yes, overall crime is a little bit higher, but Winston-Salem's a city. And like cities, there are going to be parts that have higher crime and lower crime. The other good news about this is it's simple enough for you to go ahead and do some online searching and take a look, and you can see kind of where some of those areas are. A good spot is neighborhoodscout.com. They have a kind of a color-coded system where it will show areas of higher crime and lower crime. If you want to get down into more of a neighborhood level, you can do that on Neighborhood Scout as well, or go to crimemapping.com. And like I said, the city does a really good job. They have some great proactive plans to continue trying to reduce crime in Winston-Salem. They're going to publish those reports about every quarter where it gives the statistics, and it gives a nice 3-year comparison so you can kind of see where things are heading. So yes, while this is, partially true that Winston-Salem, it does have higher crime than the national average, it is very localized. It's really simple for you to take a look at where you're considering moving, what part of the city or suburbs, and you can see the actual crime stats there. I think you're going to see that the vast majority of the area is really safe. I know when I'm downtown with my kids or my girlfriend, or we're walking around doing different things all over the city, I never felt really unsafe or anything like that. The bonus myth that might get me in a little bit of trouble about moving to Winston-Salem is all the food here is deep fried and Lexington barbecue is the best. And I'm going to admit 2 things here. Southern food is not my favorite. Yes, it has its place, but deep fried everything is not really my thing. Good news on that front, it's just a part of the food scene. There's a huge diverse array of different places to eat, all kinds of healthy options, almost kind of whatever diet you're into, there's something that will cater to that here. Southern, the deep fried Southern food and casseroles and stuff like that, it's just one part of the cuisine here. Everything's not like that. Now onto the barbecue. When I thought of barbecue, I'm thinking of, where I moved from in Chicago was either, Chicago style barbecue or like, the smoked pulled pork and, smoked ribs, or maybe Texas style or something like that. Lexington style barbecue is not that, but this is also not here. It's not like the whole hog barbecue like in Eastern North Carolina either. There are some places that are really famous for that, not only in Winston-Salem, but if you head, just about 20 or 30 minutes down to Lexington, you can go to some of the old school places. Honestly, just not my favorite. It just tastes a little bit more like charcoal grilled pork shoulder to me, and chopped, not my favorite thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that Lexington style barbecue is not the best. Get out. Now I'm even in more trouble, but if you're looking to buy or sell real estate and you don't mind that I don't care for Lexington barbecue as much, you can reach out to me directly at jeff@govalentino.com. Thanks.